Thank you. It's lovely to be here. It's actually really weird hearing my voice right now because this is actually the first time I've ever listened to Radio 4. Now, before we get started, I should probably tell you that I am Muslim. Hope that's okay with everyone. Good? Cheers. It isn't always, that's the thing. I perform around the country quite a lot. I had a gig on a Friday night a little while ago. It was in Canterbury. It was called a comedy and curry night, okay? And I was the only non-white act. You'd think I'd be the favourite. No. Quite the opposite. Now, so yeah, like I said, I am Muslim. If you're not sure what that is, it's kind of like being Jewish, but not as fashionable. What's happened to me recently, right? I've just started to get some attention for the first time. Obviously, I've got my own Radio 4. This is amazing, you know. But before this, the sort of attention I'd get, you could probably guess the sort of thing. Like, I'd get asked to go on a big radio station before, quite a big one I've listened to a lot of my life. But they'd only ever want me on if the topic they were discussing was terrorism, which I don't even know anything about. Which I've never written about or talked about publicly or anything, but I get asked to talk about it a lot, like I might be some sort of expert. Right? Happens all the time. A little while ago, quite a big paper wanted me to write like an opinion piece about British girls running off to Syria to marry terrorists. Again, I don't know why they're asking me. And I don't know why they're asking a comedian. It's not really appropriate, is it? But it happens all the time, and eventually you start to feel a bit patronised, you start to feel a bit offended, you know. And I sent back quite an angry email. I said, look, I don't understand why this stuff even happens. I don't know anything about it. You know, it's rude that you think I would know about it. And I had to say, how can I possibly understand why girls in this country, in the UK, are running off to a war zone to marry ISIS guys when there are single award-winning comedians in the UK? You start to take it quite personally after a while. This show is going to be all about dating as a Muslim in Britain, which can be quite different to dating as a Muslim abroad, which is very different to dating at a Wetherspoons in Croydon. I'm Muslim. Why would I have been to a Wetherspoons? Right. Now, about a year ago, my brother got married, right? I don't know if you've been to like an Asian wedding before. It's probably quite different to what you're used to if you haven't. For a start, Muslim weddings are huge. Also, we've got traditions that you don't really have. Like, okay, well, we don't really have anything like a first dance. We don't really have exchanging vows usually. The best man isn't usually sick in a flower pot. Also, you work out who's going to get married by throwing a bunch of flowers. We work out who's going to get married next by whoever's got the pushiest parents. Like I said, about a year ago, my brother got married, but that made me the last of my siblings to still be single. Various people that I don't even know came up to me and said, "You're next." And I had to laugh and pretend it was the first time I heard it, like I did with the 48 previous guests that did the same thing. The next morning, I got some texts from my mum. Now, usually, your mum might be the same. Usually, I just get sent quite funny videos from my mum, like stuff like a cat wearing a jacket. Like, you know, it's good to know what was trending in 2004. But this was a bit different, right? It's a bit unusual. I hadn't really had a message from her like this before. It was the day after the wedding. Everyone was sort of relaxing and, you know, just sort of winding down. And then she sent me these messages on WhatsApp. She said, "There's some wedding cake left in the fridge." I said, "Okay." She said, "Don't eat all of it." I said, "Okay." And then she said, "And you should get married while you're still young." So there was a lot to think about there. But, not just the cowboy emoji at the end. Here's the thing, I wasn't against the idea of getting married. It was just all a bit awkward for me, you know? I'd never taken dating very seriously before. You might be like me, I've used a lot of apps, a lot of dating apps. One of the most effective I found was Bumble. It's one of my favourites. Does anyone here use Bumble?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen you on there. Can't even see anyone. One of the most effective was Bumble. One of the least effective was Uber. Bumble is like a slightly classier version of Tinder, basically. The main difference with Bumble is that women always speak first. That's probably because of disgusting men on Tinder that exists, you know. There's other good apps as well. There's Happen, which is an app that matches you based on people you've walked past, but it's quite insulting because it made me feel like I should get out more because it was just matching me with all my neighbours. There's also Hinge, you might have heard of, which matches you with your friend's friends, which is an awful idea because I'm my friend's friend. I wouldn't date anyone like me. And then there's Deliveroo, which matches you with the pizza. Here's a genuine Bumble chat I had a while ago. Bilal, drink of choice? I said, Pepsi. Full fat. Bumble said, you have been unmatched, keep swiping. So that's what dating was like for me. But even when you got on with someone, it could be quite difficult. Like, I had quite a weird thing happen to me. Now, okay, I went on Tinder and I set you can set your distance settings, right? I set it to 2 miles, 2-mile radius, so I wouldn't have to travel far. And I got matched with quite an amazing girl, right? We chatted and we laughed a lot. I laughed, I couldn't see what she was doing. She might have been furious, to be honest. It seemed like it was all going really well, and then I asked her whereabouts in East London she was based, you know? She said a little area called Finland. It turned out, right, the love of my life had matched with me when she was using Wi-Fi on an aeroplane which flew over the UK. I actually got matched with someone in the sky. There's a lot of similar apps to Tinder, right? There's all sorts of, for whatever, I guess, you consider yourself. There's ones for, like, professionals. There's ones for different religions, you know, all of that sort of thing. There's a new one that I just discovered. There's one called Raya, which is specifically for celebrities to use. So I'll probably be on that in a year. Tinder, though, is a world that I'm used to, right? I've used it before, even though it can be a bit horrible. But I wasn't going to find a nice Muslim wife on Tinder, was I? It wasn't really the place to look. Luckily, there are other versions of Tinder that exist. There is a Muslim version of Tinder. It's called Minder. Genuinely. It's not even a joke. So, I was ready to do some mindering. I was ready to go. I just had to set up my profile first, right? Which is always... It's always a bit awkward, this sort of thing. It starts off quite easy, my profile. Name, Bilal, age 26. And then for profession, it wouldn't let me type a word in. It was a bit awkward. Instead, there was just a drop-down list. And there was no comedian in the drop-down list. The only thing it let me put on my profile was other. So it's not the best start, is it? Bilal, 26, other. Now, the next thing on Minder was quite confusing. It's not the sort of thing you'd get on Tinder, I don't think, or many other apps. It actually asked me a question. It said, how religious are you? I don't even know what that means. Like, I don't know if that means how much do you believe in stuff, how good a person are you. Again, I couldn't type a word in. There was no drop-down list either this time. Instead, for how religious are you, there was a sliding scale. I thought about all the good and bad things I've done in my life. I thought a lot of the good stuff might be cancelled out by bad stuff. So I put the bar at about halfway, right? I thought halfway a good person, halfway religious, whatever, you know. Although, you know, on a Friday night, I might put that down to 20%, the religious bar, right? I'm Muslim. What would I do on a Friday night? Play too much FIFA. You know? Using this app was fascinating, right? There were some people that I matched with that were at 100% religious, perfect people, saints apparently. How do you get that good? You know? And if you're that religious, if you're that good a person, why are you on Muslim Tinder? And then there was the opposite. There were people that were at 0%. Why would you be on Muslim Tinder? Anyway. It was okay, I got my first match. I was ready to do my mindering, right? So, it'd been like 30 minutes. on this match. No one had said anything. It was quite awkward. I mean, it was awkward for me. She was probably in the shower or something. I was sitting there staring at my phone, you know. I thought, okay, I'll be a gentleman. I'll speak first, right? So I said, hi. Then I remembered this isn't Tinder anymore. This is Muslim Tinder. This is a different world I'm in, right? So I said, salam. It's very important. Lesson. If any of you are going to join Minda. She replied, she said, salam, how are you? I said, I think I'm okay, thanks. You? She said, I'm good. And where do you go from there? Like, what do I do now? Do I try and sort of show off? Do I try and, like, I don't know, like, be funny? I didn't really know what to do. I was getting a bit anxious. She actually asked me a question next, which was, it kind of confused me at the time. I don't know if you'll understand it. She said, what's your caste? Now, I didn't know what she was talking about at the time. She was talking about that weird class system which started in India, spread around Asia, based on your family history, a weird hierarchy thing. I didn't really know what that meant, though. I said, well, actually, once I was cast in Hollyoaks. That's pretty good, isn't it? She said, no, you're caste. I'm Jat. That means we're like farmers. What about you? Right? And again, I had no idea what she was talking about. I thought, what is my... Her thing is farmer. What's my caste? What do I say? I said, comedian. She said, is that your job? Are your parents okay with that? I think they are. But it's like she already decided on my behalf that they're really disappointed. She didn't even let me answer. She didn't even let me say anything. She actually told me what she was doing. She said, I'm studying to become a lawyer, which I'm sure her parents are very happy with. I replied, I said, oh, I thought you were a farmer. Were your parents okay with you leaving the farm to become a lawyer? And then I hadn't heard from her for a little while. I was getting quite worried. I went back on the app to see if she was okay, and this thing popped up at the bottom. It said, you can no longer message this user. So, could have been my wife. Never mind, keep going. I got another match, so it was okay, right? I thought, okay, you learn from your mistakes, right? I messed up there. With this next match, again, I'll be a gentleman. I'll speak first, but I'll say exactly what I need to say this time, okay? So, all right. So I said, hi. I'm a farmer, what about you? She said, what? I said, salam, right? It's important, remember. She said, you're a farmer. I said, yeah, that's my caste. Innit? She said, oh, okay. I said, what about you? Because, you know, I've got mine sorted now. I just need to know what hers is, and then we're ready to go, right? You know. She replied, she told me her caste. She said, oh, I think I'm Mughal. Right? Now, I was learning this stuff as I was going along. So far, the only casts I ever heard of were farmer and comedian. She added a third one in Mughal. I said, Mughal, what's that? She said, oh, I think it means we're like kings or royalty or something. Lol. And I said lol. I didn't mean lol. I was feeling a little bit embarrassed because apparently I'm a little farmer guy and she's like a queen. It's a bit of a mismatch. She changed the subject quite dramatically. She said, she changed the subject. She said, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Now, I don't know where I see myself in like an hour when I'm out of here. I guess the dream would be, you know, having a TV show, buying a house, owning a nice car, and you know the gel pens where you take the lid off and it smells like apple? I'd get one of those. I couldn't bring myself to say that, though, and I panicked a little bit. She said, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I answered too quickly. I said, probably a newer version of Minder. You can no longer message this user. I had one more match. Okay, I had one more match. I thought it's okay, you know. It doesn't always, you know, these apps are weird. It's fine. This one it'll work out. Now, this was actually a bit weird. She actually messaged me first, this lady, and that never really happened unless it was like on Bumble. No, you wouldn't ever get a message first. And I thought that was quite nice. She messaged. She said, "Hi, how are you?" I said, "I'm great, thanks. You?" She said, "I'm okay. So many weirdos on this app, lol." I said, "Lol, you seem okay." That's a cool thing to say, I know. She said, "Ha ha 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 ha, lol," which is a bit much. At least she likes to laugh, though, I thought. That's a positive. And then she changed the subject quite dramatically. She said, "Anyway, my uncle is a late millionaire that needs a bank account to store his millions in." "What's your sort code and 3 digits on the back of your card?" I didn't want to seem rude, and I sensed a bit of chemistry. So I did reply. I said, 600223. "And what's your favourite film?" She said, "Batman Forever." "And what's your account number?" I had already unmatched her and uninstalled the app because that's the worst film I've ever seen. I thought I'd try something a bit different, something a bit more, I guess, old-fashioned. I signed up to a matchmaking service. I sent them an email. I said, "Hello, can you please help me get married? Love from Bilal." I put a little kiss on the end as well. They emailed me right back, like they didn't have a lot going on. They said, "Hello, Bilal. Yes, of course we can. Just pop over your marriage CV, please. And we'll see what we can do. Thanks." Yeah, I had no idea what they were talking about. Turns out a marriage CV is quite a common thing. It's like an employment CV. It's like, you know, it's like the best bits about you, and then they try and get that and match you up with someone else, and that's how it works. Yeah, I thought it was a bit weird, but I thought, okay, I'll put together my marriage CV. Now, the problem I have is my marriage CV is shocking. Now, I needed my grades, my university. This is something I've been quite embarrassed about until now. Do we have any graduates in? Congratulations. Now, I have a degree. I don't want to brag. It's a media degree, so is that a degree? Yeah. Yeah, it is. Now, when people ask me where I went to university, sometimes I say Manchester, sometimes I say near Manchester, and I hope they don't ask anything specific, because it's not Manchester, right? Manchester Uni is a good uni. I went to a university that I'm actually not allowed to name. That shouldn't be funny in itself. The problem is, in the year 2013, my university was named literally worst in the country, bottom of the list, right? 2013 is when I was still there. So it was a 3-year degree. It was my second year. I couldn't even get out. I stopped doing work in my final year of uni because I started stand-up, right? And it's more fun. What I'm trying to say is, I didn't go to my graduation because I graduated university with a 3rd-class degree. Do you even know anyone who's got a 3rd? Does anyone here have a 3rd? Really? Yeah, there's never 2 in the same room at the same time. I did a module called Writing for Radio, and I genuinely failed. So any young people listening, don't worry about it, innit? The reason I'm not ashamed anymore is because I realised something quite recently. Now, a lot of your favourite comedians, a lot of people that you'll hear on Radio 4, a lot of people who haven't even made it onto Radio 4, are like Oxbridge educated. A lot of them have amazing first-class degrees from places like Oxford and Cambridge, and they're all doing the same job as me. So maybe it's them that should be embarrassed. After that, the final thing I needed was my employment history. Now, I've only really had one proper job before this. I worked in a call centre. Has anyone here done that sort of work before? Yeah, I'm not going to be positive about it. Now, I was the only non-white person working there, which I don't really care about, and it meant that people had a lot of questions for me about things that they thought was my culture a lot of the time, which again, a bit weird, but I don't mind too much, you know. But there was one guy in particular who was so obsessed with me, he was just kind of patronising, right? He wanted to show everyone he was okay with me. There was a month where I was fasting, right, for Ramadan, right, which, again, I understand that can be quite weird if you don't know about that sort of thing. I don't mind people asking me about it, but he was more obsessed with it than I was, right? It was quite odd. He then decided he would join me and fast with me for a month. Which I'd much rather he didn't do, but it's like he said, apparently he was doing it in solidarity with me. There was nothing wrong with me. He even set up a video blog on YouTube of his fasting experience. He made it, my personal thing, he made it all about himself. His videos went a little bit viral, so my mum will probably send them to me in about 10 years. The thing with that office was that everyone was quite divided, right? There were lots of, I think like most workplaces, there were a lot of different personalities there. A lot of people didn't get on. This guy, the fasting guy, basically managed to unite all of us because we all hated him equally. So, put that on the CV, put it all on the CV, send that off to my matchmaker. He emailed me right back to say, "Hi Bilal, this is not the best marriage CV I've seen. But don't worry, we will get you a date." And then I didn't hear anything for a while. And of course I didn't. It was such a weird, old-fashioned way of doing things. It wouldn't, you know, it was never going to work. It didn't feel like I was getting anywhere. I uninstalled all my dating apps, which was hard because it meant I couldn't use Uber anymore. It was all basically the same experience I was going through with some different words. Like a Hugh Grant film. I came across an advert for Match.com. It said, "Forget about fate, let science decide." Which is the most terrifying dating slogan I've ever seen. But what they're telling us is that all these apps work on algorithms, basically, right? There's no human touch to it, really. And I'm so angry at Facebook whenever, like, okay, sometimes a hoodie gets advertised to me, and I'm like, that is exactly what I'd buy. But it's done it. It's been invasive. It's you know, it's used my search history, and it's done it like that, and I find that all quite horrible. Yet I'm going to let an app find my wife, apparently. Yeah, that's fine. You know? Didn't make any sense. My parents were introduced to each other by their parents, which is basically, you know, it's technically that's an arranged marriage. I look at that as old-fashioned, you know, personally. I look at that as strange, but my parents' parents probably knew them a lot better than any app could know any of us. But it seems to have worked out okay for them. Now, I hadn't heard from my matchmaker for a while, and then I suddenly received quite a strange email. It was from someone called Yasmin. It said, "Hey, Bilal, are you free next Tuesday?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely. What do you have in mind?" She said, "Well, I'm not sure what your rate is, but how does £9 an hour sound?" I'm sure you can tell I was a bit stunned by this development. I mean, that's more than £60 a day. I checked who the email was from, I checked who Yasmin actually was, and it turned out she worked for an extras agency. It wasn't what I thought it was. I thought, all right, well, since I've already started talking to her, it's a bit awkward, isn't it? So I thought, okay, I'll ask what the job is for. She replied, she said, "A university is having their big graduation this summer, but not enough students are graduating. We just need some young people to dress up in robes and pretend to graduate." The job offer was sent on behalf of a university in the northwest that I'm not allowed to name. I thought I've had enough now. I thought, you know, I'd got rid of the apps anyway, but I still needed to get rid of my weird matchmaker guy. I emailed him to say, "Hi, thanks, but I don't think this is working, Bilal." Again, he replied very quickly. He said, "Hi, Bilal, your email is working fine. I just received this." I replied, I said, "No, mate. I mean, I don't think I can carry on with the matchmaking stuff. Please just get rid of my file. Thanks, Bilal." But then my matchmaker sent me this email. He said, "Hi, Bilal. Okay, sure, I'll get rid of your file, but just so you know, I got similar emails last week from a woman about your age that says she also wants to give up." I emailed back. I said, "Really? What's she like?" He replied, "Well, she also has a bad degree." She sounds perfect, to be fair. He ended his email with, "Do you want to meet her?" I said, "Of course I do." I thought I finally actually got a date when I was going to give up. The date the matchmaker got me hasn't actually happened yet. I don't want to think I've already blown it, but I realise announcing my excitement for my date on national radio has raised the stakes a little bit. Although if she's listening to this, then she listens to Radio 4, and then, well, that means she might be too good for me anyway. But, you know, you never know. Wish me luck. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for coming. Cheers.